This is Winston with the Creativity Cocktail. Today, I don't know where you are or what you're doing, but you're about to hear of a friend that has an unbelievable creative purpose that if you're not familiar with this, you've never heard of it before. Not only is she creating something beautiful for a few, but she's creating something beautiful for the entire covenant of matrimony. And so,
Yes.
so I am super excited that the dear friend Treshelle Williams joins us today.
Hello,
Treshelle,
hello. Hi, everybody. I'm
it,
so excited to be here today. Thank you for inviting me.
and so everyone who's been following the Creativity Cocktail, by the time this will come out, Treshelle, we might be at episode close to 60 episodes at that point,
Oh,
and
awesome.
that is so amazing. And one of the things that we focus on is having all types of creatives, and not just creatives in what people traditionally say, well, artists or writers, but people just creating abundance in the world. And what
Absolutely.
you are doing is that. So I'll let you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about Wife Talk and the purpose and the mission behind that for us.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on. It is absolutely an honor and a privilege to be here. White Talk actually was birthed out of a desire to be creative
Ah,
and creating something that would help married and engaged people across the nation. I got married to my husband very, very fast. We quickly knew that we needed support, staying happily married, and we decided to take a 12-week Married for Life course. And we met a huge abundance of awesome and wonderful people that we took this 12-week course with. And within, I would say, 3 years, all those couples were divorced. And I was devastated, literally devastated.
I've
And
heard
I
of this
said,
Married for Life before. What was that? Where is that? I know I've heard of this.
yes, it is actually a nationwide program that helps, and it's typically inside most churches that need marriage support. And it's a also program. The program was phenomenal. Like it literally peels back so many layers. Um, and what I realized in that is that once you're done with that 12-week, there needs to be further support. And I just kept asking, how can I be that further support? Because while we were all in the chorus, we were all moving forward, doing what we need to do, and creating and developing lasting relationships with each other and within our marriages. That support went away. It went a little haywire. And I just thought, how and could I be a support, and how can I create something that would allow for that to not happen? Because I really understood that when a marriage breaks up, it breaks up a family, it breaks up financial success. It's a legacy of issues that totally devastates a community and a family. And so I was like, what can I do? And I just got really, plugged into listening to God's voice and started creating. And I didn't know it would turn into what it is today.
Yeah, you brought
But
up a good
today
point
we,
about the
huh?
ripple effect about marriage that I didn't. Sometimes people don't understand it. They think it's just about the two people, but you're
Right.
exactly right. It has such a consequence. Wow. And
It's a huge consequence. It's one of the number one reasons for lots of poverty is you can pull it back if you pull enough layers back. It is the breakdown of the family, and so when the family is not together, there's no support to keep the family together. There is literally a devastation that is definitely on the rise, and that's what we see in so many communities. So much when you see poverty, you can probably trace it back to there are single parents, there are folks that don't have the support system, and there's just so many different things. And so I just kept being open and willing to create whatever I needed to create in order to be a support system in the community. I know it is not easy being and becoming one. I mean, that's the whole point of marriage, is becoming one.
Yes, that's right. And I
That
know that
process.
you have like conferences and all. By the way, before you continue, I just want to tell you that when we started this organization, Rising Tides, you were one of those people that I said, well, who's doing something? Who created an organization? So you have inspired myself.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Things.
you.
So I know
Yeah.
you got conferences all. I see pictures and all these things all over. I know it's right now we're talking in the midst of the pandemic, so I know it's a little
Right.
bit of a different world. But I know you've had conferences everywhere.
Yes, we do. We have a yearly conference every year in December for leaders who are part of our organization. We currently have about 60 chapters across the nation, where we get together in cities across the nation to help women to understand that you have a support system when it's hard in marriage. It's okay. And so we have those leaders come together once a year, and then we have another conference where everyone that's a part of the 35,000 member organization comes together in March. This year, of course, pandemic, all
Oh,
kind of stuff going on. We actually get
35,000.
35,000 women, yes, across the nation. Yeah.
That
So
is,
we're touching the lives of so many. We get so many awesome, wonderful testimonies of, I was going to divorce and I came across you guys, and this is what we are doing so much better. So we know that the support, creating programs and fun activities and classes and courses and webinars allows for us to be able to help people see that there are options other than divorce when hard times hit. Typically, people run from the hard parts of marriage, which is why there's the high divorce rate in our nation, because they're like, well, it's hard, it's difficult. I don't know how to fix it. And if I don't know how to fix it, then nobody knows how to fix it, when that's not necessarily truth. And so we do what we can to have the conferences, we have webinars, we have classes, we have programs to support families and women across the nation to stay married in healthy marriages.
that's awesome. I tell you,
Yeah.
a lot of times people are asking me things about marriage because I guess in the scheme of things, I've been married a long time.
Yeah.
Not
You got
nearly,
some years in there.
not nearly as long as like some examples like in my parents' generation, but
Mm-hmm.
and they always are asking for like a quick fix. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
two bits of advice one way or the other, it's solved. Or, if you turn the key somewhere, then all of a sudden your marriage is great.
Right.
My thing, and it's always probably not well received, is that marriage is hard.
It is hard. It's
Becoming
work.
one is going to be a whole lifelong pursuit.
Yes, it is. It absolutely. It is a pursuit to not only be good for your partner, but being able to be good for yourself. Learning you. I think many people go into marriage with a very jaded thought, either jaded in a good direction or a bad direction. This person is going to answer my this, or I am going to be the answer to someone something. And we forget that you have two human beings with very intricate, detailed past that come together to become one. And typically, their paradigms, their thought process, their belief systems, even if they believe the same God, their systems of belief with varying things, food, cleaning, just whatever it is, can be vast. And so bringing those two together is definitely not always an easy process.
It's so interesting about because I love the concept and the fact and marriage in general. It's just a beautiful thing on only many levels that you mentioned. It's such a contrast to the world that is telling a lot of us sometimes that it's all about us.
Yeah.
You hear that a lot where it's like, I
Yes.
got to do me. I got to be
Yes.
me. And I got to forget the other person, and I had a chance once to talk to a bunch of young girls, and this was in a kind of in a religious setting, and they asked me a question about this, and they said, "So what's the thing that you do, and what's the key for you?" And I said, "We are mutually submissive to each other."
Absolutely.
And what and it's not submissive in like the sometimes in the connotation that people say, well, somebody, taking control or hurting someone. It's about the fact that you think about the other person first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
put their needs, their heart, and at a priority in your life, and it makes the difference.
So you got these conferences all over the world. I mean, with the pandemic, hopefully by the time this is uploaded, the pandemic will be over.
Right. And even if it's not, even
Very-
if it's not, even if we're still in, we have literally moved into a space of understanding that we can have a webinar, we can have a retreat. We are moving literally with technology and the time. And so we actually have an event that's coming up so this will be old by the time we do this, but this weekend coming up, we do a webinar once a month, and it's typically the first Saturday of every month. And the members of the organization can attend, and it's online. So people from all over are literally chiming in, and we're dealing with communication, especially since we are in a pandemic type of situation where everybody's quarantined and you have to be inside, and normally you got 8 to 10 hours, somebody is out of the house, and now you are in the house. There's a whole lot more engagement happening. And so we are working on creating content that would allow for those that that entrust us to help them to be able to learn how to do what they need to do in order to communicate effectively with each other. How do we have effective communication, which is always a topic of conversation, because that's one of the top causes of divorce, is that we can't communicate. Irreconcilable differences. It's the ability to communicate and come into an agreement. And so working on that.
I think sometimes people think that's easier than it is.
And it is not.
It is
It's so
not.
not.
There's so many skills that are required, and it's not just you talking.
Absolutely.
It's really understanding. It's using some of those habits that are out there.
Absolutely.
I encourage.
Absolutely. Because communication is not only talking, but it's also listening. And there is an art to speak and engage, and there is also an art to listen and to receive and to hear. And so, not hearing from the place of I need to combat, but hearing to understand. That is a total different art. Most people are listening so that I can get my point. Okay, that's what you said. I didn't hear anything else. I need to get that one part in, and that's it. And so there is an art to both listening and hearing so that you are able to communicate effectively.
Yeah, and I know this is particularly hard, and I can say this: it's hard for people of my gender, primarily because we a lot of times think that we got the answers for things.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
just like we're listening so we can solve something. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you're not supposed to listen to solve things. Sometimes you're just supposed to listen.
Yes, listen just so that they can be heard. Yes.
People are smart. You ain't trying to solve. You ain't gonna solve something.
Right.
And I know I've done this many times, and it's just something you just gotta learn. And
Yeah.
and especially these days where everyone is just the speed of things is like a thing that we're trying to do. Like, let me move on to my ADHD. We're all got it. Is I got to move on to the next thing. So can I solve your thing in 30 seconds? And
Yeah. Yeah.
in a marriage, you can't solve stuff like that.
There's some things you can't. You have to put it on shelves. And I always use my husband and I as an example. We've been married. We're rolling into 14 years. And I say often there have been conversations that have lasted literally 5, 7, 8 to 10 years that we are walking through, because we are learning. We are learning all that we need to learn, not only about each other but about ourselves. What are the things? What are the things that work for me, and what are the things that work for him, and how do we blend those things together in a fashion that will work for both of us and our union? And that's not always the easiest thing. So it takes time.
That's awesome. I would be remiss if I didn't share the fact that I know you are a published author, and
I am.
if you can share with the audience here at the Creativity Cocktail a little bit about that.
So probably about 4 years ago, I had started what would be called Periscope. It's everybody should be kind of familiar with Periscope. It's been around a little bit now, where I would come on for some time and I would do what we call confessions. And I believe the Word of God. So our organization, Wife Talk, is a Christian ran organization. We believe that we do have the answer to all the ailments of marriage, because we have the Bible. And so we speak God's word over our lives. And so at the age of about 30, was the first time I grew up in the church. About the age of 30, I moved to Atlanta, 31, and my pastor would teach us about the importance of speaking God's word over your life to see the fruition of what can happen, and the benefits of it. And so I started to write my own confessions with Bible scriptures, and I would use those, and I would go live on Periscope, and the community just grew and grew, and people were like, oh my gosh, you are doing this. How can we get a copy of what you're doing? And I had literally my Evernote notebook online with all of these confessions.
You're an Evernote user like myself.
Right.
I couldn't live without my Evernote. There's no doubt.
Right. My Evernote, I mean, oh my goodness. And I would just type, and someone says, could you please allow us to have a copy of that? And so I would start sending them, you know, messages and stuff and emails and I said, okay, let's just, let's do it differently. Let me just do, a little something in a pamphlet or something. And a friend of mine said, write a book. And I was just like, what? And so I decided to go ahead and put a book together. And so we have volume 1 and volume 2. It's, I believe, if I turn, and this was my very first book, which is A Wife's Daily Prayer Confession. It's 31 days of powerful, life-changing confessions. And it just basically, this is the volume 1. We have a volume 1 and a volume 2. This one is everything you can think of, from forgiveness to finance to depression to anger to all husbands. There's like a whole lot on husbands because it's a wives, right? Praying over our husbands, speaking God's word over our husbands. And so we did that one. And then the second one is just the promises of God, because I would say the promises of God often. And people were like, well, what are the promises of God? I was like, they're in the Bible. And they were like, but where? And so I did volume 2 with scriptures and the promises of God. And so we're in the process of getting volume 3 together. We're battling. We're thinking about doing something for infertility, for those who are married, who are believing for children. Oh, wow. And one for entrepreneurs.
Wow, what made you think about those 2 topics?
So for infertility, there were a lot of discussion at the time when I first finished the first volume. I had so many women out of that 35,000 that were believing God for children, and they were having difficult times getting pregnant. And I understood what that was like. My husband and I went through a season where we were, going through, are we going to have children? How are we going to do this? Is this going to work for us? We had, were pregnant once in our first year of marriage and had a miscarriage. And it really wasn't as big of a deal to me then, but about 5 or 7 years into our marriage, I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? So my heart went out to the women who were seeking God and wanted to know the word of God concerning having children. And so I started putting a bunch of scriptures and stuff together for them, and I started to give those out just like I did before. And they were like, can you put in a book, please? And so that came out. And as an entrepreneur, we always need to be praying because
Yes, that's
it takes time and work.
those are topics that are so relevant, especially these days.
Mhm.
When you think about entrepreneurship, I am 100% of the opinion that everybody should be an entrepreneur, no matter
Absolutely.
what they're doing.
Hmm.
Everyone's got
Hmm.
a gift of some kind that
Absolutely. And
they
share
should
with
do
the
that.
world.
You
Yeah.
cannot rely upon as what's been shared. So as of today, we talk, 2 weeks have gone by and 10 million people
Are out of
are
jobs.
looking
Yeah.
for work in that short period of time. That they work for
Absolutely.
some place, it's not the place's fault per se, it's the virus's
Right.
fault.
Right.
But those people are out. And
Right.
so I always tell people that even if you're working somewhere, you should be thinking about what your entrepreneurial track should be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I learned that the tough way, being in transition from whatever really decent role at a certain point in my career, and
Mm-hmm.
one day saying, "Oh, well, everybody at a certain level aren't here anymore." And I said, "Well,
Mm-hmm.
shoot, I've
Mm-hmm.
got to think about the future.
Absolutely.
Ain't getting any younger." So those are some really awesome things. Let me ask
Yeah.
you, Treshelle,
Yes.
you inspire me. You inspire the 35,000 members that are part of Wife Talk. Who inspires you? And I know you'll say God because you're spiritually based, but who inspires you in your life?
There was quite a few people, and they would probably not be well-known people. I am really inspired, of course, like you said, God, so we won't go there, but I'm really inspired by the everyday person who takes the leap of faith to say, I am going to go after something that may seem as if it's not obtainable, and they still push forward and they go for it, and they will fight for the thing that they believe for. And I come across these awesome and wonderful people often doing Wife Talk. I am a very much so a people person, and I think people are phenomenal. I think it was a great thing when God created us all different. I'm so just in awe at the um, tenacity that people have to cultivate whatever it is that their life is, the dream of. I have a friend who was like, I'm going to create my own, marketplace, and she's doing her own thing. And I was just like, I remember her showing up and she could barely stand before people and talk. And I just was like, you are rocking it out. I've had women who have come to me and they would refuse to get on a Facebook Live or do any kind of engagement with people outside of those who are very familiar with them. And now they are running businesses and doing things. And so those people really inspire me. If I were to think of, big name people or folks who are outside of the norm, I would probably, of course, Oprah has always been a cheerleader for women and for those who go outside of their norm. I absolutely love her. One of my new favorites, which the guy is not as liked as most, but I am, I just absolutely am.
Well,
Uh,
who's that person again? Say that person.
that person is Kanye West. I think he
Oh,
is
oh.
just, he's a phenomenal, different kind of, I just feel like when he's no longer here, they're going to dissect some stuff and find out that he has something else going on. And so
So did you listen to his album, his most recent album?
I have listened to his most recent album. I think he did an awesome job. I actually served in church with the new choir, the director of his choir, and some
Oh,
of his key people. So I'm very familiar with a lot of what they have going on, and I just think it's there is something about being a creative
Mhm.
that you can go from one genre and one thing to create something so great in another area. And I
There's no
just
doubt that that man is a genius.
absolutely, he is absolutely
I saw
so.
something recently about artwork that he did, and it was
Hmm.
up for auction or something like that. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, this man
Yeah.
is so multifaceted.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
creative thing in him, it is just phenomenal. And I used to say, I can't wait to meet Oprah. I can't wait. Now I'm like, one of these days we'll meet Kanye. I just want to sit down and have a conversation.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
So, they, so there are people that are listening to us now, and I feel so honored that there have been people all over the world that's listened to the Creativity Cocktail, and that includes people in Australia and other and England and Asia and all these different places. And it's going to be even more prevalent in our new world, where we'll be communicating these ways. And I feel technology is such a blessing for all of us. Um,
Absolutely.
so if someone wanted to contact you or learn more about Wife Talk or Treshelle, what are some
Mhm.
of the ways that they can do that?
We are on almost all social media platforms under Wife Talk '07. So for Twitter, we're Wife Talk '07. Facebook, we're just Wife Talk Inc., which is the organization. For Instagram, we're just Wife Talk. And if you are attempting to get to us, either via website is wifetalk.org. You can get to me just by my name, Treshelle Williams, and I'm on social media all day, every day. It's where we live. We engage all day, every day. All of our leaders are present. If for whatever reason you reach out and I'm not available, there is a team that is there to assist at any way possible. We are literally almost 24/7. There's always someone on. So you can always reach out to us and someone will definitely respond within a few hours.
That is awesome. So one thing I usually ask at the beginning, and we've had such a great conversation that I just love the way it's flowed today. When you're ready to create or your mind's thinking about a new creative way of doing something,
Hmm.
what are some tools or ways you get yourself prepared? Like you mentioned Evernote as one thing that we have in common. What are some ways that you think about, like, I got this great idea. What happens next? What do you do next when you got that?
I am big with getting things written down. So I dream a lot. So in my dream state, I see things, I hear things, I'm participating in things. And one of the things, because I am a dreamer, I have something that I can write into so I don't lose the thought right after I wake up in the morning. I typically will have a conversation. If my husband is not present, I'm having a conversation with my team. You guys, this is what I had a dream about. This is
Oh,
what's
wow.
going on. What do you think? So I'm sharing it. I am doing what I can to make it real. And so that's a huge thing for me. Yes, I use Evernote a lot. I am also really big on prayer and not questioning the creativeness that's happening with inside. A lot of times when I'm talking to people and they are in their creative flow, they're like, is that really possible? I don't question the possibility. I just make sure I get it out.
Wow.
Either it's in writing, either it's I record it, either I'm telling my team members, I'm telling my husband. I don't question it. I just get it out because I need it to come alive.
Mhm.
Because if I speak it, it becomes real for me. And so those are basically the things that I do to stay in a creative flow. I love, 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 love listening to, I guess they call it jazz, coffee music. And so it relaxes me to be able to get everything out. So I do that as well.
Jazz coffee music, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I get a hard time from my wife because I listen to a lot of music from a couple of like new classical guys like Philip Glass and Dustin O'Halloran. And she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, you're playing that Max Richter. And like you're playing that stuff all the time, but it's a
Yeah.
way that really gets me going." Uh,
Absolutely.
so here's a question. Here's a
Uh-huh.
scenario. So I need you to bear with me on this scenario.
Okay. I'm listening.
So I'm not in a room. It's somebody else in the room, and they're meeting you maybe for the first time, and they are saying to you, Treshelle, I am or I was a creative person, but
Mhm.
this thing that's going on in my life is beating me down. I don't know if I can be. I should just not be that person, or I don't know where to start. And you're turning to this person and you're going to give them your thoughts on that. What
Mhm.
are some of the bits of advice you would give to that person who's struggling with their creativity?
I would absolutely acknowledge how life can and it will make you want to throw in the towel on all things that are important to you. I would make sure that they understand that I get it. I understand. I've been there. I know what it feels like, but I also know what it feels like to come out on the other side. And so I would want to leave them with the thought of to remember the place where they were the happiest, and
Mm.
whatever that place was, wherever the place was where they were the happiest, to get as close to that as possible in thought. If they can get in thought and imagination to that place, it doesn't get rid of whatever life is giving you, but get into the imagination of that thought and allow yourself to sit in there every day for just a couple of minutes and allow it to lead you back into the space. It will guide you where you need to go. Our imaginations, our past, those awesome places, even when they're kind of broken because of being shattered from hard stuff, those places can still lead you into back to a creative space, because the joy of that thing that was so great for you at one point can rise up in just a few minutes, and it can do so much greatness. But to get into that space, not really, I would limit to say, go get a piece of paper and write it all down. No, just allow yourself to pause. Even like if you're on the elevator and you're going from the bottom floor to the 10th floor, and that 10 floors you're going up, allow your brain, close your eyes and allow your brain to just tap back into that happy place. And it will give you something. It'll fuel you inside to
You
get
know,
into that space.
by the time this comes out, we would have done on April 4th. Myself and some of the colleagues of our organization are going to be having um, a Facebook Live event, and it'll be a broadcast versus just a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about three different ways to help someone spark their creativity going through these times where a lot of things can be running through your head. And the third one of those tenets, and I can say it now because people on April 4th, it'll be past April 4th by the time this comes
Right.
out, is joy,
Yeah.
and finding that joy in your life. There's
Yeah.
an example that I will share in the conversation, is that I had a chance recently to go take a walk recently after this, the heaviness of the world that we were living in started to really get down, or started to come down. And I tell you, Treshelle, I started to observe things that I never observed before.
Mm-hmm.
I started to see things, started to see the trees, started to feel the air, started to feel and look at people's yards in a nosy neighbor kind of way that I never paid
Mm-hmm.
attention to before.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
streets, the cars, everything had like this heightened awareness that I never paid for or didn't pay much attention to before. And you
Mm-hmm.
know why? Because our world for a long time was really about us and what we're trying to get to, what's
Absolutely.
our next task that we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is a really bad time for many people, because many
Mm-hmm.
people are, sick or worse. But for those of us who are not at the moment, we got to like cherish every moment.
Every moment.
And every moment is a moment to be creative. And that creativity does not mean everyone has to stop and write a novel like you and I, or a play or something. That means they got to find that one little thing. And, as always, you have been wonderfully inspiring to myself.
I thank you.
And to our audience. Before we depart, and first of all, I got to ask you this question. And this question is that we would love to have you join us again in the future. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that we'll be doing is by the end of the year, God willing, is that we will be compiling a audiobook of all of the people that have been part of our podcast.
Awesome.
Not every single one of our conversations, but really key points that you and all the participants have shared. And we're hoping that you could be part of that.
Absolutely.
And obviously we'll let everyone in the world know everything there is about Wife Talk.
Absolutely.
Thanks again. Any parting words for the audience that's out there?
I would just like to say that love is possible to cover a multitude of issues. And Wife Talk is all about learning to love each other, learning to build relationships. And if you haven't done so, tell somebody you love them today. Call a few people. I challenge you to do so. It will make your world so much better.
That's right. That's another tenet I'll be talking about. And that's really about finding, we all have people that live on other sides of the country or the other side of the world. In this moment of time, it doesn't hurt to make a phone call to them.
Absolutely.
And when you call them, don't try to recount the past or whatever happened way back when. First words that utter out of your mouth is, I love you.
Absolutely.
And just let it go from there.
Absolutely.
You are so phenomenal.
Thank you.
The world of the Creativity Cocktail is super excited to have you part of this. Wife Talk is awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for inspiring me and inspiring so many people.
Thanks so much. Have an awesome one. It's been great.
And thank you. And everyone who's out there, the Creativity Cocktail, powered by Rising Tides Charity, is a platform for us all to help each other find our creative spirit. God has given us all the ability to create something in this world. Our goal is to either turbocharge it or to spark it and give abundance back to other people. So we're super excited that you've joined us today on this podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you're looking at the video version we have, it's on YouTube, VMO. We want to make sure that you can see us everywhere that you can. And again, we want to thank Treshelle Williams, the awesome leader, CEO of Wife Talk, for joining us today on the Creativity Cocktail.
Have a great one.